What's up, y'all? Roy here, and you are listening to the Clemens with a Z podcast. I know that it's been a while, been a couple months since I released everything or released a podcast or a Substack or something like that. And it wasn't an accident, wasn't me disappearing. It was an intentional pause. I had this feeling that I needed to stop, I needed to pause. And for a lot of reasons, it was just to hear myself again. And, because I care about what I'm saying, I care about what I'm doing, and there was just this feeling of I was just moving out of habit, and I didn't want to keep talking just to keep talking. I didn't want pressure, internal or external, deciding the direction of this podcast. I wanted it to be intentional. So I slowed down and I regrouped and tried to get honest with myself about where this has been and where I actually want it to go. Because I believe sometimes the most faithful thing you can do, creatively, emotionally, spiritually, is to stop long enough to make sure you're still speaking the truth, your truth. And that pause ended up taking me somewhere unexpected. It was funny. During that time, I was cleaning out a room in my house, rearranging it, all that stuff, making space. Um, and I carried a couple of boxes up from the basement. They had been down there for a while because of a renovation in the house and things like that. They were forgotten, honestly. Um, I just put them down in the basement and all that stuff. But then as I'm unpacking, what was inside there were books, a lot of books. And some of them were books that I bought when I first started this podcast. Books about men and emotions, fatherhood, identity, questioning what all this masculinity talk is, vulnerability, growth, all these things that were really burning inside of me 5 years ago when I hit record for the very first time. And I had this moment where I just stopped and I was just staring at them because I had forgotten so many of them. And in a way, it was like opening a time capsule from a version of myself who I was trying to figure out how to become a father, how to break cycles, how to feel deeply without shame, how to be a man without armor. And I felt this kind of wave of gratitude and almost tenderness. Like, oh yeah, like that's why I started this. Because really this podcast began as something simple, just a space to talk about masculinity, emotions, becoming a dad. I wanted it to be a space for honesty, a place to say the quiet things out loud that a lot of us feel. And then somewhere along the way it expanded into faith, spirituality, into healing from the ICOC, and high control religious groups, into deconstruction, into empathy and fear, and into all the messy, beautiful questions that life throws at us when we decide to live awake. And then seeing those books again reminded me that this whole thing started because I didn't want to go through life asleep. I didn't want to just inherit a script. I wanted to feel, I wanted a community, I wanted to ask better questions, and I wanted to become whole. And that's why I'm still here. And maybe that's, if you're listening to this, that's why you're here too. And so standing there with those books in my hands, another thought came up. Started thinking about all of y'all. Like I wonder if any of y'all listening has ever thought, what happened? Where did this show go? Is this still the same podcast it used to be? Because if you were here at the very beginning, if you found this show when it was called the Balanced Male Podcast, and it was mostly about fatherhood, feelings, and masculinity, then yeah, it's changed. And maybe it felt sudden, or maybe it felt natural, or maybe you've just been wondering, like, if I wandered off the road somehow. And I get it, I really do. Because sometimes, even now, as I'm speaking this, I look back and I wonder as well, not in a way that questions the path, but in a way that honors where it's all started. Because the truth is, I didn't really pivot. I just kept walking, kept growing, and life kept revealing deeper layers that I just couldn't ignore. The questions got bigger, in a way the stakes got higher, and my heart and my spirit pulled me toward conversations about faith, trauma, healing, God, identity, truth, and freedom on the other side of fear. And so I realized that really this podcast was never really about masculinity alone. It was about becoming human again, about me becoming human again, telling my story of becoming human again. After systems, expectations, beliefs tried to tell me and tell us who we have to be or should be. It's always been about waking up, becoming whole, telling the truth about what formed us and what freed us and what freed me. So, no, nothing went wrong. This is what happens when you refuse to stay frozen at the beginning, when you let life grow you. And to all of y'all that have stayed, who've walked with me through every evolution, thanks. That's awesome. I see you, and I'm grateful for you. And I'm still here. I'm just as committed as ever to exploring what it means to live awake, honest, curious, and human. And if you're newer here, well, welcome. You're stepping into a story that's already in motion, but you're right on time. And I want to speak directly to two groups who have been with me since the very beginning, even if they don't know each other or think they have anything in common. To the dads who started listening back when I was trying to figure out what it means to raise a kid without repeating the patterns I grew up with. I started it with you in mind. Y'all were the mirror I held up to myself. Y'all reminded me of why this mattered, why breaking cycles isn't abstract, it's urgent. You've watched me grow, listened to me grow into fatherhood, not perfectly, not with a manual, but with curiosity, fear, love, and hope. And you're still here, and I carry you with me into every conversation about identity, compassion, and what it means to be present in our lives. To those of you that came here because of my ICOC story, those of you who know what it's like to walk out of a system that shaped your entire worldview and your entire sense of self, you're not alone. You never were. You know, leaving is only the beginning, and it's holy work to rebuild your sense of self, safety, and spirit, and to trust your own voice. I will always make space and room for y'all because healing from spiritual control doesn't happen in a straight line. It didn't for me. I wish it did. It would have been a whole lot easier. But it happens in layers, seasons, returns, renewals, peaks, valleys, takes you on unexpected journeys. And the truth is, when I think about these two threads in my life, these two groups, they're not separate at all because both are about becoming a person who lives awake. Both are about learning to love without fear. Both are about stepping into the kind of life you weren't taught to believe you deserve. And if you're here because you're a dad, or because you left a high control group, or you're wondering what this whole conversation about masculinity is, or you've been hurt by things like this and you're trying to find your way, or you're just confused or what, or because you're waking up to your own life in a new way, you belong here. You always have. I'm glad you're here. And it's just wild when you take a pause in your life because it's weird and it's messy. And sometimes when we're doing anything in life, we just need a pause. And what's funny is that what I found when I paused these last couple of months, a lot of questions show up. A lot of questions were there. One of the biggest ones that's been following me these last couple of months was, who am I? Not the roles, not the labels, not the titles people are trying to give me, not podcaster, not former church guy, not ex-ICOC member, not masculinity voice, not dad content creator. Those are chapters, not identity. And so I'm asking, who am I really? Who am I becoming? I'm not a pastor. I'm not trying to build a church or a new set of beliefs people have to sign up for. But I also know I'm not just a guy with a microphone talking about feelings and faith. So when I sit with that question, here's what feels true. Here's the language that lands in my chest. I'm a guide. I'm a witness, a storyteller, question asker, the maker of space. And I'm a reminder that you get to belong to yourself. And I walk with people who are learning to trust their own voice again. People who are learning to unlearn fear and choose freedom. People who are tired of being told what to believe and are finally brave enough to ask why they ever believed any of this in the first place. Because pastors hand out answers. I want to hand people back their questions and give them courage to trust themselves with it. I don't necessarily want to be followed. I mean, you know, I'd like you guys to follow me on Instagram, stuff like that, see what I'm doing. But I don't want to be followed in that sense of pastor. I want to walk alongside. I don't want to lead you away from something because that's still captivity, right? I want to help you walk toward yourself. And if there's a title here, it's not pastor. That's a loaded title. But I think it's something older than that, something simpler, and something more human. And I like it a lot, this title. A companion on the road, or a fellow traveler. One voice among many saying, you're not crazy for waking up. You're not alone in questioning what once felt unquestionable. You don't need a permission slip to grow. Your story belongs here, it just belongs. Mhm. So yeah, I'm just trying to live awake. And I want this place to be that for anybody doing the same. And so if that's who I am, or at least who I'm becoming, then what is this space? It's not a church. It's not a deconstruction camp. It isn't a men's group or a parenting podcast or a theology classroom. It's not a club you join, not a belief system. It's not a place to find the quote unquote right answers and defend them like treasure or your little precious. I think it's something quieter than that. I think this space is a space where humans can begin to learn to unlearn, to peel back layers of who they were told they had to be and rediscover who they actually are. Because that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm talking, and I want y'all to feel that as well. It's a place to feel deeply. It's a place to rethink what we were handed, not out of rebellion, but out of reverence for truth, for love, for our own dignity. It's a place to become whole again, to bring the pieces of ourselves back into the same room and realize they were never broken, just separated by fear, expectation, doctrine, shame, or culture. Because I hope here you feel that you don't have to have anything figured out. You don't have to perform healing or certainty or strength. You don't have to be beyond your story or polished, wise, calm, or enlightened. I hope that when you are here, you feel that you get to be real. You get to be in the process. You get to still be finding your way. Because doubt is not failure, it's a doorway. If anything, it's the doorway. Emotion is not weakness, it's truth telling, it's intelligence. It's the soul knocking on the door of your consciousness saying, pay attention, you're alive. And faith here isn't about agreement or obedience. It's about curiosity, about honesty. Here it's about the courage to trust that the truth, even the messy, confusing, disorienting truth, will not betray you. And we don't gather in this space to get answers. If anything, I hope we're coming here to stop pretending we had them all in the first place, to unclench the fists that once wrapped around our certainty, and to let the old gods of fear and performance crumble. Because I'm not here trying to be right. I'm here trying to be real. And I hope that's the same for y'all. Because I'm here, I believe I'm here to become fully human, not perfectly spiritual or religious, whatever that means, not perfectly healed, not perfectly anything, but just honest and open. Just awake enough today to take the next step towards ourself. So, if that's who I am becoming, what this space is, where am I going from here? Honest answer is forward, deeper, and hopefully together with all of y'all. Not trying to go towards dogma or a new identity or certainty dressed up as enlightenment, trying to go to wholeness. So when I started this podcast, when it all began, I thought about these things, these 4 pillars. It wasn't this radical idea that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the only one that's heard about this. Pillars are in lots of people's conversations. Honestly, I got these 4 pillars from the movie Chasing Mavericks, and I thought it was pretty rad. And I wanted to talk about it, and I wanted to engage with that in my own life. And so these 4 pillars are physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental. They're things that, in the movie, the character says this is what is important to him, what he needs to feed every day. And I was like, that feels about right for me too. It was just my way of chasing balance, trying to hold everything together, not trying to crumble under the weight of expectations I inherited and never questioned. Now, these pillars aren't something to achieve, but it was something for me that I wanted to be in relationship with, something to honor, to grow as I grew. In a way, they're a map of where I can go. They're a lens of how I can view healing, God, embodiment, and truth. They're a practice, daily, imperfect, and human. And yes, it's kind of like a promise. It's a promise for what you'll find here in this podcast. And so moving forward, I want to embrace those pillars again, to talk about the physical, learning how I'm living in my body again, to breathe, to rest, to feel safe in my skin after years of being taught my body was dangerous or untrustworthy. Like, this is nervous system work, presence work, am I here right now kind of work. And that's powerful. Now, the emotional pillar, I'm trying to give language to what I feel instead of performing who I think or feel I'm supposed to be. I want to let anger tell its truth, sadness to wash through instead of calcify. And I want to let joy be seen without apology. And I don't run from emotions anymore. And I want to let them speak through this podcast and through my writing and through all of that. And I have the spiritual pillar. It's not as like belief or belonging to a group. This pillar is more about openness, wonder, and courage to trust spirit and God beneath a God that I was handed. Not a faith based in fear, but in freedom. Not a worship of certainty, but of truth. Not obedience to a system, but communion with the sacred that's inside of us, around us, and between us. And the last one is the mental pillar. It's not about performance or perfection, but about curiosity, searching for clarity, trying to understand that the stories I inherited so I can decide if they're still mine. And maybe y'all can do the same. Learning how to think, not just what to think. Because the mind is not an enemy, it's a doorway. And so these pillars aren't four separate rooms, they're one house for me, one life, one becoming. And this is where the podcast is going. Not away from where it started, but I want to go deeper into what it always wanted to become. A place where the body, the heart, the soul, and the mind can come home together again. And I know that sounds like a lot, might sound a little woo-woo to some of y'all, but that's my truth. And I hope that you can join me in that. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know exactly what every episode from here is going to look like. I don't know if I ever really did. And I don't know every topic that will show up or every turn the story will take. I don't think I'm supposed to. I don't think y'all are either. We're not here to map the whole future. We're here to trust one step at a time, one truth at a time, one awakening at a time. But here's what I do know. I want y'all with me as this unfolds. Not because I need an audience. Yeah, that would be rad to have this. But because becoming is something we're not meant to do alone. And I want this to be a place where it's safe to grow, safe to change our minds, it's safe to soften, where it's safe to say I'm different than I used to be, and I'm proud of that. I want this to be a place where evolution isn't betrayal. It's belonging to ourselves, to our own truths, and belonging to our lives as it actually is, not as someone has told us it had to be. Because we're not here to cling to what we were. We're here to stay awake to who we're becoming, to live in motion, because life is not static, life is dynamic. To live in honesty, to live in our bodies, our hearts, our spirits, our minds, not outside of ourselves trying to earn approval. And I know that I'm not here to lead you to certainty. Certainty is too small, it's too rigid, it's too afraid. I don't want that. I'm here to walk with all of y'all into honesty, into wholeness, and into a life that feels like yours. Not borrowed, not inherited, not enforced, but chosen, aligned, and alive. And if you're still here, listening, breathing with me, curious, it's because I think there's some part of you that is evolving as well. Some part of you that refuses to go numb again. Some part of you that knows the old world, the fear world, the certainty world was too small for the size of your soul. And I see that in you, and I honor that in you, and I'm grateful to be a witness to it. All of us didn't find each other by accident. People don't arrive in the same room of honesty at the same moment in their life by coincidence. We're here because something in you and something in me are waking up at the same time, and that really matters. So before I close, I just want to say something to y'all, the listeners. Something I wish someone had said to me a long time ago. Okay, you're doing it. You're growing. Even on the days it feels slow, even on the days it feels messy, even when all you have is the courage to not go backwards. That's enough. And may you walk forward with a quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself because it knows what it's made of. May you learn to trust the ground beneath your feet, even when the path is not mapped out for you, especially then. May you be gentle with yourself in the becoming, not because you're fragile, but because tenderness is what gives strength room to form. May your heart stay open just enough to let the right things in, and brave enough to let the wrong things go. May you feel at home in your body again. May you breathe deeper than the life you were trained to survive. May you find yourself returning, not to who you were, but to who you've always been beneath the fear. And as you leave this moment, as you go back into your life, your relationships, your questions, may you remember this. You don't got to do it perfectly. You just got to stay honest, stay awake, stay becoming. And if you ever feel alone in it, you can always come back here. I'll be right here walking too. I'm not ahead of you, not above you, but beside you. So, welcome to the next chapter. I'm so freaking glad you're here.